In this section, we will walk through the process of developing your first Agoric smart contract using the Dapp-Offer-Up tutorial. This hands-on example will provide you with practical experience and a deeper understanding of how smart contracts work in the Agoric ecosystem. Here are the key components we'll cover. We'll start by introducing the Dapp-Offer-Up tutorial, a comprehensive guide that walks you through the steps to set up, build, and deploy a simple, decentralized application on Agoric. This tutorial is an excellent resource for beginners as it covers all the essential aspects of smart contract development. Next, we'll move on to smart contract structure. We'll work to understand the structure of a smart contract in Agoric. We'll explore the basic components of an Agoric smart contract, including terms, handlers, and hooks. Knowing how these elements fit together will help you design and organize your code effectively. Next, we'll take a look at building and deploying a contract. Once we have a grasp of the structure, we'll move on to building a contract. This involves writing contract code, configuring it according to the tutorial guidelines, and then deploying it to the Agoric platform. Deployment is a critical step that brings your smart contract to life, allowing it to interact with other contracts and users. Finally, we'll delve into the deployment process in more detail. This includes understanding the roles and permissions required for deployment, how to test and validate your contract before deployment, and the steps involved in actually deploying the contract to the Agoric network. By the end of this section, you will have hands-on experience with building and deploying a smart contract on Agoric. This practical knowledge will serve as a strong foundation for your future projects in the Agoric ecosystem. Let's begin with the Dapp-Offer-Up tutorial, which will guide us through these initial steps. The Dapp-Offer-Up tutorial is an excellent starting point for learning how to develop applications on the Agoric platform. This tutorial guides you through the entire process, from setting up your development environment to deploying and interacting with your first smart contract. Let's break down the steps involved. We'll begin with an introduction to the tutorial. The tutorial is designed to be a hands-on guide, providing step-by-step instructions to help you build the simple decentralized application, or DApp. It covers the fundamental concepts and practical steps needed to create and deploy a smart contract on Agoric. You can find the tutorial on the Agoric documentation site, which provides detailed explanations and code examples. Use the link on this slide to view the tutorial yourself. Before we can start building the DApp, we need to set up our development environment. This involves installing the necessary tools and dependencies, such as Node.js, and other related libraries and components. The tutorial provides clear instructions on how to set up your environment correctly. Once your environment is ready, we can move on to building the DApp. This step involves writing smart contract code and building the front-end application that will interact with your contract. After building the DApp, the next step is deploying the smart contract to the Agoric platform. Deployment involves configuring the contract, setting up roles and permissions, and using Agoric to deploy the contract to a testnet or mainnet. The tutorial provides instructions on how to perform these tasks. Once your contract is deployed, you can interact with it. This includes testing contract functions, sending transactions, and handling responses. By following the Dapp-Offer-Up tutorial, you will gain hands-on experience in building and deploying a simple DApp on Agoric. This practical approach helps you solidify your understanding of the key concepts and processes involved in smart contract development. Let's now take a closer look at the structure of an Agoric smart contract, which is the foundation of building any DApp. To effectively develop smart contracts on the Agoric platform, it's essential to understand their structure. Agoric smart contracts are composed of several key components that work together to define the contract's behavior and interactions. Let's break down these components. At a high level, an Agoric smart contract consists of terms, handlers, and hooks. Terms are the parameters and conditions under which the contract operates. Handlers are functions that manage the logic and execution of the contract. And hooks are callbacks that are triggered by specific events or actions within the contract. Each of these components plays a crucial role in defining how the contract behaves and interacts with other contracts and users. The terms of a smart contract specify the parameters and conditions that govern the contract's operations. These include details such as the parties involved, the assets being exchanged, and any specific rules or constraints that apply to the contract. Defining clear and precise terms is vital for ensuring that the contract functions as intended and that all parties understand their obligations and rights. Handlers are functions that implement the core logic of the smart contract. They manage actions such as offer creation, acceptance, rejection, and settlement. Handlers are responsible for ensuring that the contract's terms are enforced and that all interactions are processed correctly. Hooks are callbacks that are triggered by specific events or actions within the contract. They allow the contract to respond dynamically to changes and events, such as receiving a new offer or completing a transaction. By understanding these components and how they fit together, you can design and organize your smart contract code more effectively. This foundational knowledge will help you build contracts that are robust, secure, and easy to maintain. Next, we'll move on to building and deploying a contract, where you will apply this knowledge in a practical context. Building a smart contract on the Agoric platform involves several key steps: writing the contract code, deploying it to the platform, and interacting with the deployed contract. Let's go through each of these steps in detail. The first step in building a smart contract is writing the code. This involves defining the contract's logic, terms, and handlers. You'll use JavaScript, enhanced with Agoric's libraries, to write your contract. Start by defining the contract terms and the main functions that will handle the core logic. Once your contract code is ready, the next step is to deploy it to the Agoric platform. Deployment involves several tasks. Setting up contract terms, issuers, and other necessary configurations is part of configuring your contract. Deploying the contract with the CLI involves using the Agoric CLI tools to deploy your contract to the testnet or mainnet. This process uploads your contract code and registers it with the Agoric platform. During deployment, you will interact with the Agoric CLI to specify the contract terms and complete the deployment process. After deploying your contract, you need to interact with it to perform operations like making offers, accepting or rejecting proposals, and querying contract states. Interactions can be done using the Agoric CLI, Dapp front-end, or directly through JavaScript code. In this example, we create an offer, submit it to the contract, and handle the result. This demonstrates how you can programmatically interact with your deployed smart contract. By going through these steps, writing the code, deploying it to the Agoric platform, and interacting with your contract, you gain practical experience in building and operating smart contracts. This hands-on approach is essential for understanding the intricacies of smart contract development on Agoric. Next, we'll take a closer look at the deployment process to ensure you have a comprehensive understanding of what it entails. Deploying a smart contract on the Agoric platform involves several steps and considerations. Let's break down the deployment process to understand what it entails and how to ensure a smooth deployment. The deployment process is a series of steps that take your smart contract code from development to a live environment on the Agoric platform. Here's an overview of the steps involved. First, you will prepare your contract. Ensure your contract code is complete, tested, and ready for deployment. This includes defining all necessary terms, handlers, and hooks. Next, you'll want to set up the necessary configurations for your contracts. This includes specifying the contract terms, defining issuers and brands, and setting up initial states. Then you'll use the Agoric CLI to deploy your contract. This handles uploading your contract code, setting up the necessary configurations, and registering your contract on the platform. In a decentralized environment, managing roles and permissions is crucial for security and proper functioning. When deploying a contract, you need to define who can interact with it and what actions they can perform. You should consider the contract owner. The entity that deploys the contract typically has special permissions to manage and update the contract. Participants should be considered as well. Define the roles of participants who will interact with the contract, such as buyers, sellers, and administrators. Be sure to specify what actions each role is allowed to perform. Next, you'll want to focus on permissions management. Use Agoric's permissions management features to enforce these roles and permissions. This ensures that only authorized entities can perform sensitive actions, reducing the risk of unauthorized access or malicious activities. Next, you'll want to focus on testing and validation. Before deploying a contract to the mainnet, it's crucial to thoroughly test and validate it. This ensures that your contract functions as expected and is free of bugs and vulnerabilities. Write unit tests to ensure individual components of your contract. Ensure each function behaves correctly in isolation. Perform integration tests to verify that different parts of your contract work together as expected. Deploy your contract to a testnet environment first. This allows you to test the deployment process and interact with the contract in a live-like environment without the risks associated with the mainnet. Verify that the contract behaves as expected in the testnet. Check for any issues or unexpected behaviors and fix them before deploying to mainnet. By following these steps, preparing your contract, managing roles and permissions, and conducting thorough testing and validation, you can ensure a smooth and secure deployment of your smart contract on the Agoric platform. This approach minimizes the risk of errors and vulnerabilities, helping you build robust and reliable smart contracts. In the next section, we'll dive into working with assets and issuers, where you'll learn how to create, manage, and transfer digital assets within the Agoric ecosystem.